Welcome back to Total War Shogun 2. I'd like to discuss an interesting battle today on Ikenoura village. My opponent is Bith 2 in the black banners visible on the right, and I of course am Corbeau, and my green banners are visible on the left. The emphasis of Bith's army is immediately visible in his front line, which is composed of 3 veteran samurai archer units and a unit of monk archers. These are upgraded for accuracy, and most of them have flaming arrows, which makes them extremely deadly for a short period of time. His second line is completely comprised of veteran warrior monks, upgraded for anti-cavalry purpose. And his last line is 2 units of upgraded Yari cavalry, just general melee upgrades, and his low-level leadership general. Unfortunately, until reaching stand and fight, I think leadership generals are a bit weaker than the other options. That's going to be Bith's major disadvantage in this fight. My army is basically my standard army with only a few variations. It's still built around a core of katana units, plus my stand and fight general. And stand and fight is still so good it feels like cheating. My variations are that I've swapped out my Yari samurai for Naginata samurai, which are much more versatile, and I've gone to Ashgaru matchlocks in order to save cash. My truly new additions are my change-ups in cavalry force. I've got a unit of light cavalry with spotting, and a unit of bow cavalry. This is because I got my head handed to me by European cannons in the only match I've encountered them in a field battle. I'd rather not go through that again, so I've got a cavalry force designed to prevent that. Light cavalry to scout, and then bow cavalry to hopefully skirmish and pick off the gunners. Let's take a brief look at relative army strengths before we continue. This is a graph of where our koku expenditures went. As you can see, Bith has a crushing missile advantage, but I have an even more crushing infantry advantage. It's even worse than this graph shows, actually, because all of Bith's units are the versatile Naginata, which are still not as effective against other infantry as the swords that make up 75% of my own infantry force. This difference in emphasis pretty much dictates the opening moves of the battle. Bith is moving to secure the village and the 2 key buildings there, while I have chosen to deploy my forces on the relatively open plains area with a slight height advantage. I'm also being more cautious and scatting with my cavalry due to my aforementioned experience with European cannons. I really hate European cannons. Bith's actually chosen the ideal position for his army. He's going to get the archery dojo, and is using dismounted cavalry in order to capture it more quickly. But the village allows him to concentrate his limited melee forces effectively. He can block the choke points between buildings, and in that sense make his much inferior melee actually superior in a local context. While I'm scatting with my light cavalry, my bow cavalry has started to engage. Warrior monks may be great in melee, but they are vulnerable to arrows due to their low armor. Since Bith's archers are still moving into position, he sends Yari cavalry to chase my bow cavalry off, and prevent further losses. Note from this angle that you can easily see my Naginata unit behind the hill. Also note how from this angle even the unit flag is mostly obscured by the trees. This probably explains what's about to happen. Note that cavalry seem to present an extra large target for missile units. Very easy to hit. Back over on the east side, I've been thinking about trying to take the archery dojo away, but he has Yari cavalry to my light cavalry, and that's not something I'm going to win on even footing, especially since his cavalry is upgraded. I do consider trying to get a quick charge on him if he's not paying attention, but Bith is paying attention. Thankfully, light cavalry is just a tiny bit faster than other cavalry units, so I barely avoid losing that unit. Still clear of Yari cavalry in the south, I'm free to skirmish again. Bith has captured the armory, which improves his armor significantly, but monks are still his lightest armored target. Back in the north, I'm testing Bith's reactions again, by trying to flank his archers with my light cav. However, again, Bith is paying attention, and moves Yari, or in this case Naginata, to oppose my cavalry. However, he actually overreacts with his archers, and they wind up in kind of a muddled formation. Seeing that, I decide to charge with my entire army, and sweep along the front with my light cavalry to keep his archers out of position and retreating. This prevents him from getting off more than a few scattered arrows as I close. That probably saves me a whole unit. Unfortunately, I also give up a unit when I lose track of my bow cavalry, and his Yari cavalry completely annihilates it. At this point, Bith is pulling back again and overreacting. He's actually pulled back beyond the crest of the hill with his melee troops on the south. Unfortunately, that partially abandons the choke points between buildings that he needs so badly. Of course, in the south, he's still got 2 warrior monk units versus 1 katana samurai unit, which is absolutely losing for the katana samurai even when inspired. So I'm moving up my katana heroes to compensate. And Bith has no matchlocks with which to kill them. Here you can see a second mistake on my part. I sent my matchlocks to attack his general, but his general moved out to counter and chase away my light cavalry, which meant that my matchlocks ran straight through his lines. That's going to get my matchlocks absolutely hammered, but on the other hand, it actually ties up one of his archer units temporarily, and my light cavalry is then able to tie up his second. Once again, his archers are mostly out of the equation. Though Bith's south flank is holding quite well, his north flank has pretty much evaporated without archer support. And that leaves my troops free to pour through and attack his remaining archers. Bith does try to intercept with some of his remaining melee troops, but there just plain aren't enough. Finally, his general falls trying to tie up one of my melee units.
My lord, a glorious victory will soon be yours.
And that's the end as his army routs. Overall a good game with relatively few mistakes, and I was actually really impressed by Bith's positioning, which is probably some of the best that I've seen out of an archer army. I made 2 major mistakes, each of which cost me a unit. Bith made only 1 major mistake, but it was significant, which was overreacting to my light cavalry and my charge. I think his chances would have been better if he'd held his ground with his melee forces at the crest of the hill, at his original choke points,